Hi, I'm Miss Carey from the Henry County Conservation Department. Today we're going to discuss watersheds.
Okay, let's begin. What is a watershed? A watershed is an area of land that catches water, ice, and snow and drains into a particular body of water. Well, here at the Nature Center, what particular body of water do we have that's right up here? If you remember, we do have that little pond. But that little pond and everything else, because we're at the top of the hill, everything else drains down low into the largest body of water that we have in Henry County. That would be the Skunk River. And we are part of a small watershed called the Skunk River Watershed. Now, the Skunk River itself drains into an even larger river, and that would be the Mississippi River. And all that water from the Skunk River drains into the Mississippi, and you can see the lines for the other major rivers. They all drain into the Mississippi. The Mississippi drains into the Gulf of Mexico. That is the Mississippi River watershed. You can see it takes up a lot of the United States. Let's begin Ruby's watershed adventure. Hi, everybody. I'm a raindrop, and nobody ever thinks about me. I bet you've never thought about where I go or what I do. You go to school, the park, or the grocery store, or even the library to read a book. When I fall from the sky, do you think about where I go? Let's think this through together. When Ruby falls from the sky, what things does she land on? Trees, grass, houses, ground, cars, shrubs, streets, lakes, streams, and even rivers. When I fall from the sky and land on your house roof, what happens to me after I run off? Downhill, down the downspout, off the lawn, down the street, down the storm sewer, down the pipe, and eventually running into a lake, river, or other body of water. As a raindrop runs downhill, it gathers with more of her friends, all flowing downhill. All this water is called runoff because it is run off the roof, run off the downspout, run off the lawn, run off the street, run down the storm drain, into a pipe, and into a lake, river, or creek. Could this picture be your neighborhood? It's mine. It's a place called Watertown. We all live in what's called a watershed. A watershed is a place where water runs off in the same direction, downhill, and eventually ends up in a body of water like a lake, river, or creek. So tell me, what is a watershed? A place where water runs off downhill and into a body of water. Because we all live in a watershed, what we do on the land affects the quality of the water that runs off. As the raindrop travels downhill, it can carry things with it. What can a raindrop carry? Soil, salt, grass clippings, sand, soap suds, leaves, fertilizer, and even oil. All those things make me feel pretty dirty. People don't think about that stuff that comes with me when I run off. Today, I'd like you to meet some residents of Watertown. Together, we will think about water quality. Why, here's Mr. Greenlee. Everybody give a big hello to Mr. Greenlee. Hi, Ruby. Do you know I'm crazy about my lawn? Mine is the nicest lawn in town. I rake my leaves in piles and burn them. I love that smell. I clip my grass nice and short. Nothing is out of place in my yard. I use lots of fertilizer to keep the grass good and green. Weeds? No weeds would dare show up in my yard because I have them sprayed. My grass stays green in the summer also because I water a lot. Hold on, Mr. Greenlee. When it rains, I run off your lawn and I carry all that extra soil and fertilizer with me. When you mow the grass so short or burn the leaves, it makes bare spots on the ground, and the soil comes off those bare spots and runs off with me. Can you think of some different ideas that Mr. Greenlee can do to keep me cleaner? Do not apply too much fertilizer. Use only what you need and apply it at the right time. Be sure to check the weather forecast. Leave grass clippings as a natural fertilizer. Composting leaves is better than burning, and it's great for the garden. Don't cut the grass so short. Keep the soil in place and the grass will stay green and not even need to be watered. These are great suggestions. Mr. Greenlee, if you can change your practices, we will have much better water quality and it will keep me cleaner. I don't like all that extra stuff on me, plus I'm so nice and blue right now. I will give some of these things a try, and thank you, Ruby. Well, look who's here, another resident from Watertown. Let's give Handy Mandy a big hello. I am pretty handy. Do you know how fun it is to change the oil in the car? It saves me lots of money too. Washing my car with lots of soap, I wash my car in the driveway so the water goes right down the street. In the winter, I put out plenty of salt and sand so there's no ice or snow on the driveway. I don't want people to slip and fall. Whoa, Handy Mandy. First thing is the oil. Do you realize the oil that you spill in the driveway can mix with me and run off? I feel pretty greasy and it's an awful feeling. And when you clean your car in the driveway, the soap and I get mixed together. In the winter, I get a lot of salt and sand mixed with me and I feel pretty much like a sandbag running down your driveway. Let's think of some suggestions for Handy Mandy to keep me cleaner. Clean up any oil spills right away and take it to the nearest recycling center. Wash the car with biodegradable soap and wash the car on the lawn so the water and the soap can be absorbed into the grass instead of running into the street and down the storm drain. Old-fashioned manpower, use a shovel on that snow, but if you have to, use a minimal amount of sand and salt. Try cat litter instead. It's a natural product made from clay. Great suggestions! I will try to do a better job. Thank you, Handy Mandy. Well, look who's coming down the street. My friend, Plow'em Phil. He lives on a farm outside of Watertown. Everybody say howdy to Plow'em Phil.
I love to see soil black. I plant only when the stalks and stems are covered by dirt. Weed problems? You won't find any out there. I spray and spray. I have the best looking crops because I apply a lot of fertilizer. I even use hog manure. Ruby, I'm concerned about the way my soil sometimes leaves with the rain.
So am I. When the soil comes with me off the farm fields, I can look pretty dirty, and we have what you call erosion. Erosion happens when the soil is carried off with all the raindrops and causes bare soil. Bare soil is not good. The soil just keeps washing away with me and the other raindrops, swirling and swimming downhill down the watershed. Besides soil, we often carry those fertilizers, pesticides, and even hog manure. How can Plow'em Phil take care of his land and crops so I stay cleaner? Use only what you need for fertilizers and pesticides. Be sure to read the directions. More is not better. Check the weather before applying either one and make sure it's not going to rain in the next day or so. Same thing with hog manure. Apply it at the right time so there is little runoff. Have you heard of no-till, where they plant right into the corn stalks? Remember, the less you disturb the soil, the more likely it will stay in place and not be carried away with me.
My neighbor planted his crop right into the corn stalks. Maybe I'll try that next year.
Thanks for your time, Phil, and good luck with next year's crops.
Thanks, Ruby, and thank you for your suggestions.
Well, I'm glad you got to meet some of my friends from Watertown. I hope you realize how important it is to keep water clean and what can be done to improve water quality. It's been a good day, but now it's time for me to run off.
This is my watershed. On this side, we have our housing development. Someday a big golf course, factory, farm, and we even have a lake. The actions that we do each and every day, sometimes we don't think about how they will affect the environment. For example, over here in our housing development, I know that I want the best yard and I want mine better than all my neighbors. So I make sure that I don't have any bug problems in my yard. So my neighbors and I, we all use bug killers on our lawns. Now over here in the golf course make sure that they get rid of all the bugs there too, because we don't want any cutworms ruining that nice sod for our greens. And over in the farm, the idea is to make money off of your crops. Well, nobody wants to eat crops that has bugs in it. So we make sure that we have bug killers on our crop fields. Now also back over here in my housing development, to have the best lawn, it's got to be green, green, green. So to do that, well, my neighbors too, because they're competing with me, we all use some nice fertilizers. So we have nice green lawns. And again, back in our golf course, we want to have the greenest greens. So fertilizer is responsible for that. And in our farm, we want the biggest, the best crops that we can. And so we're going to use fertilizers over here in our crop field. Other things that happen, you know, if you go out into the street that it's kind of gritty and grimy. Well, in our streets, there's always grit and grime on the streets. Always, always, always. And then notice that going up to our farm, we have a dirt road. Well, it's bare soil. And the same thing happens in our farm fields until our crops start growing. We have a lot of bare soil going on there too. Behind the houses up here is the construction site. So that there's bare soil. And if you notice on our golf course, notice we don't have any vegetation. They've all been cut down. And when they're cut down, we have bare soil again. Now, what happens when it rains? Where do all those things go? Let's try. Now, to speed things up, we're going to have a torrential downpour. So what happened? Got a lot, that clear water that was in our lake has a lot of new stuff in it. It's not really clear anymore, is it? When it rains, a lot of those things, a lot of our activities take whatever has gone on, whether it be fertilizers or bug killers or even the loose soil, it gets carried away down the watershed, down to the lowest point, to the largest body of water in our Watertown happens to be our lake. what are some things that we could do in order to slow this down? Well, if you look at my water town, you'll notice we're missing some things. And if you say missing some trees, you would be right. Watch what happens when we plant trees. What if it rains a little bit harder? Plants can absorb a lot of those extra pollutants or chemicals or what have you. They can absorb them up through their roots and take them out of the environment. There's another thing that can also be done naturally. I mean, there's the normal things, don't use as much, follow the directions, like we said in our PowerPoint. But there's something else that we haven't talked about yet. And one of those is called a wetland. A wetland is designed to absorb extra water, and not only just the water. Where did those pollutants go? Wetlands are designed to absorb extra water. The special plants that are in wetlands also take those pollutants out of the water, just like the plants and trees did. Have you ever heard of buffer strips? Now, let's try this at home. Now, we're going to make your own watershed at home. You're going to need a piece of paper. The thicker the better, something like cardstock, but regular paper will work. You also need a spray bottle with water in it and crayons. Be sure to get these things set up where you're not going to get in trouble for making a water mess, like make sure you're on the kitchen table or better yet outside on the sidewalk. Pause the video while you get these things and get ready. Welcome back. First, take that piece of paper that you have and crumple it up into a tight ball. Then pull out the ball, but don't completely smooth it out. Next, you're going to take your crayons, and on those high places, you're going to use one of the colors and mark all the ridges or your hilltops. Then you're going to get a different color and mark all the low spots. After you do those two things, you are going to make your water town. You're going to add houses and roads, if a store or a church, parks, whatever it is that you want in your town, you're going to add it. So when you're all done, you're going to look something like this. See my roads, my houses, my high points, my low points. Pause the video while you do this. Welcome back. Now, I want you to make a hypothesis or a guess as to what you think is going to happen to your model when you spray it with water. Now, for our purposes, for our experiment, I took my water and I colored it blue so you can see it better on the video. But what do you think is going to happen? Go ahead and gently spray your model watershed like this. with the water. Watch the direction the water flows and the patterns that the water makes. Do you have any flooded roads or flooded buildings? In mine, it looks like the front of my store might be just a little flooded, and a couple spots in my playground maybe. But on this low part, the water settled in a low part, like it should. Engineers and contractors who build houses for a living have to plan and think about where water goes before they can even start designing a house. Houses cost a lot of money, and new owners definitely don't want a flooded basement or a backyard every time it rains. Water has to go somewhere. Are there ways to slow down the water that runs off? Where water ends up is important in a neighborhood setting, but since we live in Iowa, many people make their living from farming. So now let's think about a crop field like we had over here. How can we slow down that runoff? When it rains, much of the water that hits the ground runs over the surface of the land until it eventually collects in the low spots. If it saturates the surrounding land, wetlands may form. Wetlands are areas where the soil is wet for all or parts of the year. Wetlands can be man-made or they can be formed naturally. The ability for wetlands to hold water is one reason they are valuable for watershed management. They store water and slowly release it over time. Our next activity is going to demonstrate how wetlands absorb the water. So for it, you need, again, that water bottle. Make sure it's still got plenty of water in it. Some sort of shallow tray. Today we're using these little aluminum trays. You need a cardboard strip, 2 pencils or 2 rulers, and 2 sponges. One, the other, has a center cut out of it, and make sure this one is damp. Pause the video while you get these things ready. Welcome back. To demonstrate how the ground stores water, what I want you to do is take the lid off the spray bottle and pour a shallow layer of water in the bottom of the tray. Next, take your sponge and, not the one with the hole in it, take your sponge and lay it in the water. I'm going to use 2 sponges just for our demonstration. Notice that the sponges are absorbing water just like soil does. In a minute, once our sponge is full of water, I want you to take your finger and press down in the sponge. See how you get water around your fingernail? And then let go. The water went back down into, well, the sponge is representing the ground. And do it again. Stick your finger down in there. See how the water covers your fingernail? But it absorbs it and holds it in the ground. Now let's go to the second part of this. Take these sponges out. I'm going to squeeze them just so I don't make a mess. And the next thing you're going to do is take your 2 rulers, take the piece that has the portion cut out of it. This portion is representing a stream. So now I'm going to take this cardboard strip, I'm going to put it in our stream because that's the bottom of the river or the bottom of the stream. And then I'm going to prop my tray up so you can see it. But this time I'm going to use the dark blue water so you can see it better on the video. Okay, so spray your water gently down your stream. Watch where the water goes. Do you see that the stream banks absorbed that water? And then it will eventually seep into the surrounding land area. Here are things to think about. First, what problems can result if the volume or the amount and the rate of runoff in a watershed are increased? In other words, for example, what if we had a huge thunderstorm with a lot of rain? Where's that water going to go and how fast is it going to get there? What about potential pollution issues? Could erosion be a problem? Erosion is the physical moving of soil particles by wind or water. In this case, water. Are there ways to slow down this runoff? We already talked about wetlands as one way. We showed it in our model earlier. And that's a great idea because that's what they're designed for, is to absorb excess water. But now think about those plants. Remember we planted trees over here and we watched with the sponges how they were representing soaking up the bad stuff out of the environment into the roots? Can they slow this runoff down and even slow down the rate of erosion? Can plants absorb some of those pollutants? That's all for now. Thanks for watching.